Chapter 1399. Hand over the next moment, they saw that the colorful clouds turned into whirlpools and began to spin wildly. In the end, they turned into white whirlpool light balls that hurt people's eyes. What is this? What the hell is happening? Is this evil sun in the night? I remember that evil sun in the night once happened in Jinyao Kingdom. No, it's not evil sun in the night. Evil sun in the night only happens at midnight. After seeing the white ball of light clearly, Golden Wolf let out an exclamation. This is a breakthrough to the perfect gold core stage? It turns out to be a perfect stage breakthrough? How is this possible? Even our Lord, it is said that his breakthrough is only 70%. We can't even reach 50%. However, in this mere Miluo continent, there is actually someone who can reach the perfect stage breakthrough? Who? Who is it? The already desperate Beastkin King also raised his head at this time. Looking at the white vortexes, his eyes were first surprised, then he was astounded. This is not just a perfect stage breakthrough. Beastkin King looked around. He felt the joy of the vegetation, insects and birds in the forest, the celebration of all creatures. They were growing crazily. They were crazily eager to absorb power. It was as if the magical beast forest that had been dormant had suddenly come to life. What kind of power is this? Who is it that triggered such a terrifying and majestic force? In the confinement space. At the beginning, Heshi's retreat breakthrough did not attract the attention of others. Even Lu Jishi and the others paid more attention to the 2 bottles of medicine in Zheng Shouyue's hands. Seeing that all the people who took Xia medicine improved and became normal. All the people who had been bitten couldn't sit still and fled from Lu Jishi and the others to Huang Medical Branch one by one. Elder Qi's face was very ugly. He stretched out his hand and scratched his forearm. There was a scratch mark there once. Although it had been cured, he always felt itching constantly. He even started to feel a little numb now. He didn't know if it was his own delusion, but when he thought of the appearance of those people who went crazy, he had a spooky feeling. Elder Qi approached Lu Jishi and said in a low voice, "Jishi, I always feel that those of us who were scratched may have been infected with corpse puppet virus, but the effect is not so severe. If we can snatch Shiyu's medicine." Lu Jishi's face changed when she heard the words. In fact, she didn't feel it before Elder Qi mentioned it. As soon as Elder Qi said, she only felt that her face was itchy. She couldn't help stretching out her fingers to scratch it several times. But now, she just felt that scratching could no longer calm the itching. Could it be that I'm really infected? Lu Jishi shuddered at the thought of those people's hideous and mad appearances. She immediately agreed with Elder Qi's opinion. Hearing Lu Jishi's words, Zheng Shouyue frowned and said, "I only have 2 bottles of medicine in my hand. Of course, I have to give priority to treating those who have been bitten. Your corpse puppet virus won't trigger in a short time, so wait until Shiyu wakes up." Elder Qi was furious. "Zheng Shouyue, that medicine, you have to hand over." Compared with his own safety, the life and death of those students was none of his business. Since they were about to become monsters, it was better to kill them. Lu Jishi walked up to Shiyu, but Wei Qingyuan stopped her before she got close to Shiyu. Chapter 1400. Being discovered. Lu Jishi said with an ugly face, "Brother Wei, what do you mean? I just want Shiyu to provide more antidote medicine. It's good to save people, and it's what doctors should do. Why are you stopping me?" Wei Qingyuan said with a blank face, "Shiyu lost too much spiritual power in the magical beast battle just now. Now, she needs a little time to recuperate. You all saw it just now. Shiyu dragged his tired body to heal all of you, so she almost collapsed out of tiredness. Why can't he rest now? What's more, the virus on your body has not taken effect now. If you really want him to treat you, just wait for him to wake up." "How can I wait for him to wake up? What if he refuses to treat me when he wakes up? What if my face is ruined by the virus?" Lu Jishi's internal organs were all twisted together. Why does everyone support Shiyu? What's so good about him? Zheng Shouyue and Elder Qi were already fighting together. The students and elders of Miracle Healer Academy were also divided into 2 factions. Some of them panicked because they had scratches and hoped to get medicine. Some felt that the Doctors' Association was too much and would rather stand on the side of Huang Medical Branch. At this moment, a young man's clear voice suddenly came from the crowd. He seemed to raise his voice so that everyone could hear him. Is Brother Shiyu advancing? Great, Brother Shiyu is already so powerful at the Foundation Establishment stage, even the Gold Core stage is no match for him. If he advances to the Meridian stage, I believe we will be able to leave the confinement space. Moreover, no one in Miracle Healer Academy will be a match for Brother Shiyu in the future. The one who spoke was Tong Bing. As soon as these words came out, the entire confinement space fell silent instantly. The faces of Wei Qingyuan, Jin Ziyu and others were extremely ugly. They kept looking at Shiyu pretending to be nonchalant because they just didn't want people to find out that she was advancing. Coupled with the tight defense of Purple Abyss Vine, that's why the aura didn't leak out. However, now that Tong Bing said it, everyone knew about it. So would those who want to be unfavorable to Shiyu miss this opportunity? The answer of Lu Zhishi and others was, of course not. The elders of the Doctors' Association looked at each other with cruel and murderous intent on their faces. They came to the Magical Beast Forest, this time under the order of President Lu Xiang. The biggest objective was to take advantage of the chaos in the Magical Beast Forest to get rid of Shiyu. In the beginning, none of them took such a kid from the Foundation Establishment stage seriously, thinking that killing her would be a matter of minutes. Who knew, in the end, they lost 2 nascent soul stage elders, but this kid was unscathed. Just like what the boy said just now, the Foundation Establishment stage was already so difficult to kill. If she successfully advanced, could they still complete the mission assigned to them? Thinking of this, the elders who were lazily watching the show gathered around Heshi one after another. Without the slightest hesitation, Wei Qingyuan and Jin Ziyu immediately stood in front of Heshi. People from Huang Medical Branch, including Zheng Shouyue, also rushed over. All of them looked nervous and shocked. Zheng Shouyue asked Jin Ziyu, "Shiyu, is he really going to advance?" Jin Ziyu nodded in silence. His eyes fixed on the elders of the Doctors' Association. Although their strength was far comparable to the nascent soul stage, Shiyu must be protected no matter what. Chapter 1401. No Mercy. Lu Zhishi smiled slightly and said, "Tong Bing, don't talk nonsense. How can people advance without taking medicinal pills? And it's still in such a dangerous place? I think we should wake Shiyu up. When he wakes up, everything will be clear." Tong Bing walked slowly to Lu Zhishi's side, touched his head, and showed a shy and embarrassed smile on his face. "Oh, I may be wrong. Right, how could Brother Shiyu advance in this kind of place? I think she must still have a lot of medicine to cure the corpse puppet virus. Let's wake him up first." Wei Qingyuan took a deep breath, glanced at Tong Bing and several elders of the Doctors' Association with a cold gaze, and said in a deep voice, "Shiyu, she is indeed advancing, so you better not disturb her. Can your words prove anything?" Elder Qi sneered, "I think he's just acting because he doesn't want to treat us, right? Why don't you wake him up and let him tell us by himself?" Qian Dezhuang said angrily, "You know that if people who are advancing being disturbed, they will go crazy and their dantians will shatter. You know Shiyu is advancing but you want to wake him up. Are you trying to harm him?" An elder surnamed Zhang in the Doctors' Association seemed to be the oldest and the highest in cultivation. He had reached the late stage of the nascent soul stage. At this time, he stroked his beard and smiled slightly. "We are just concerned about student Shiyu. Why don't we check it first? If he is really advancing, we will make a decision again." The long sword in Jin Ziyu's hand suddenly came out of its sheath. He slashed fiercely on the ground. Until Shiyu succeeds in advancing, no one is allowed to approach. Otherwise, don't blame me for not showing mercy. A mere kid at the Gold Core stage dares to say showing no mercy? Elder Zhang laughed. His voice was full of coldness and sarcasm. He suddenly stretched out his hand. "Take him down." Zheng Shouyue was trembling with anger. You want to sabotage Xieyu's advancement? You are too vicious. Aren't you afraid of suffering your own karma? Elder Qi sneered, "What are you talking about? For the safety of Miracle Healer Academy students, We are just asking Shiyu to hand over the antidote. We don't need you to represent us. A cold female voice sounded with anger. Han Qian'er held a long sword. Her pretty face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. She walked quickly in front of Heshi and the others and said coldly, I was also scratched by the corpse puppet, and I'm indeed itchy, but I believe that as long as Shiyu wakes up, he will treat us for free. This elder, are you more afraid of death than a little girl like me? Can't you even wait a little longer? You! Elder Qi's face turned livid at what she said. But Elder Zhang took a step forward, and he said with a sullen face, I remember, you are the little girl from the Han family, right? Before you speak out, you better think clearly. If your grandfather knows that you offended our doctors' association for such a kid, do you know what's going to happen to you? What's going to happen to your grandfather? Elder Qi immediately laughed and said, That's right, you'd better think about whether your Han family can afford to offend our doctors' association. However, if you are sensible, I can give you a chance. As long as you give me Shiyu's head now, our doctors' association will give the resources for the Feng family to your Shuiyu sect Han family. How about that? Listening to their threats and lures, Han Qian'er's frosty pretty face didn't change a bit. Chapter 1402. Drugged at the end, Han Qian'er said coldly, I said these words and did these things because I wanted to do it. I'm just disgusted with what you did. It has nothing to do with Shiyu, and it has nothing to do with the Han family. Even if you ruin the entire Han family, I will still say that. It's the most shameless act to sabotage other people's advancement. I stand up because I don't want someone to use such indecent means against me at my critical moment one day. Elder Zhang's face was extremely ugly. He never expected that Han Qian'er, as a member of the Han family, would be so stubborn. Many students and elders of Miracle Healer Academy couldn't help standing up after listening to Han Qian'er's words. Deputy Dean Jiang said with a serious face, If there is anything, wait until Shiyu succeeds in the advancement. Shiyu's talent was obvious to all in the academy. This might also be the only talent that Miracle Healer Academy had produced in thousands of years that could rival the upper realm. In addition to her relationship with Venerable Huiyu, how could Deputy Dean Jiang be willing to give up on her? The elders of the Doctors' Association glanced at each other with treacherous smiles. The arrogant Elder Qi looked at Deputy Dean Jiang and the others with a sneer. Just a bunch of old fools, what right do you have to stand here and talk to us? Deputy Dean Jiang was taken aback for a moment, then burst into anger. Since he became a deputy dean, no one dared to be so arrogant to him. These Doctors' Association people had been arrogant and domineering since the very beginning, and they even threw people of their academy as bait. He had long been displeased with them. Deputy Dean Jiang said with a sullen face, Then what right do you have to dispose of my students? You better understand that they are students of Miracle Healer Academy, not disciples of your Doctors' Association. Li Qingxuan, who had the hottest temper among the branch deans, yelled directly, I have long disliked these people of the Doctors' Association. Let's beat them to death together. Doctors' Association still had nearly 10 nascent soul stage martial artists, but Miracle Healer Academy also had a lot of elders this time. Most of them were branch deans, so their strength was far beyond that of the Doctors' Association. However, those members of the Doctors' Association sneered. Seeing the elders of Miracle Healer Academy attacking them, they didn't look nervous or scared at all. A bad premonition passed through Deputy Dean Jiang's mind. Soon, his fears were confirmed. Li Qingxuan should easily defeat Elder Qi, whose strength was much lower than his. However, after Elder Qi launched his palm, Li Qingxuan suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. He flew backward like a kite with a broken string. Dean Li. What the hell happened? Zheng Shouyue caught Li Qingxuan, who was flying over. Li Qingxuan's face was ashen. His eyes were full of anxiety and resentment when looking at Zheng Shouyue as if he wanted to say something, but he finally passed out. Zheng Shouyue checked Li Qingxuan's pulse, and he was startled. He glanced at the people of the Doctors' Association with fierce gaze. What have you all done? Elder Qi laughed loudly. Tiske, you guys are the elders of Miracle Healer Academy? You only found out what we did now? After fighting the magical beast just now, when he took our medicinal pills, wasn't he very grateful to us? I didn't expect that a dean of the dignified Miracle Healer Academy didn't even know that he was drugged. What a bunch of trash. Chapter 1403. As well be hanged for a sheep as for a lamb. As soon as Elder Chi said this, all the students and elders of Miracle Healer Academy changed color. In the battle with the magical beast just now, no matter whether they were injured or not, they lost a lot of spiritual power and vitality. Therefore, except for those from Huang Medical Branch, most of the other students and elders took the medicinal pills given by the Doctors Association. However, they did not expect that these medicinal pills were actually poisoned. Deputy Dean Jiang tried to mobilize the spiritual power in his body, only to feel a colic pain in his dantian. He spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was very gloomy. He stared fiercely at Elder Chi and the others, gritted his teeth and said, "You dare to use such despicable and insidious means, why? The Doctors Association and Miracle Healer Academy are always interdependent. Aren't you afraid that Miracle Healer Academy will break from the Doctors Association completely?" Elder Chi sneered, his eyes full of contempt for looking at dead things. Elder Zhang coughed and said slowly, "Of course, the Doctors Association and Miracle Healer Academy are closely related, and our relationship will become even closer in the future, especially when our president becomes the dean of Miracle Healer Academy. As for what happened today, Deputy Dean Jiang, what you are suffering from is President Lu's unique poison, spirit lock pill. Without President Lu's antidote, you all will slowly lose your cultivation and finally die of pain. I believe you deans must know how to choose. This is a threat. A naked threat. The ambitions of Lu Shuyang and the Doctors Association were too great. They not only wanted Shiyu to die, but they also wanted to take this opportunity to control most of the students and elders of Miracle Healer Academy so that they could control the entire Miracle Healer Academy. Even if some elders here didn't want to submit, most people's lives were in the hands of the Doctors Association. They were completely helpless. Deputy Dean Zhang's face was extremely ugly. He wanted to act recklessly, but the colic pain in the dantian and the fearful expressions of those students all made him swallow his anger back. In Huang Medical Branch, someone suddenly said coldly, "Lu Zhishi, do you consider yourself a student of Miracle Healer Academy? You actually collude with outsiders to deal with your classmates and teachers like this. Where is your humanity?" Lu Zhishi frowned. Her face showed a sad expression as she said softly, "This student, please don't slander me, bah." "Who slandered you?" Qian Dazhuang's loud voice interrupted Lu Zhishi's acting. "Don't tell me you don't know what the Doctors Association did? But if you are really innocent, just let them hand out the antidote immediately. Aren't you Lu Shuyang's daughter? Don't they all listen to you?" Lu Zhishi's face turned uncertain. The people from Miracle Healer Academy all set their eyes on her. There was no longer respect and admiration in the past, only doubts and anger. The good reputation and prestige I had accumulated in Miracle Healer Academy are completely ruined at once. All of this is caused by Shiyu. Since this is the case now, as well be hanged for a sheep as for a lamb, I must get rid of Xie, the scourge. Lu Zhishi took a deep breath and said coldly, "I don't want to explain too much now. Our Doctors Association is doing this for everyone's benefit. The traitor Shiyu colluded with the magical beasts and betrayed mankind. We must get rid of her." Chapter 1404. And me, now I declare, whoever kills Shiyu first, I will give him the antidote of the spirit lock pill. In the future, when my father takes over the academy, you will also be valued. Whether you are an elder or a student, after getting rid of Shiyu, you will understand my painstaking efforts. With that said, Lu Zhishi waved her hand and made an eye gesture at the elders of the Doctors Association behind her. "Who dares to touch my student? Over my dead body!" Zheng Shouyue roared and rushed toward the elders of the Doctors Association. The scene was completely chaotic for a while. The strength of the Huang Medical Branch's people was low, so the nascent soul stage didn't care about them at all. However, They seemed to have made up their minds to risk their lives to protect Shiyu, not letting anyone get close. Most of the students and elders of Miracle Healer Academy stood aside with ugly faces, not helping each other. But there were also those, who were afraid of death and yearned for power, stood on the side of the Doctors' Association. The strength of the two parties was too far apart, so no one thought that the Huang Medical Branch had the possibility of successfully protecting Shiyu. But at this time, the people of the Doctors' Association still looked ugly, because they were really blocked by two Gold Core stage students. Wei Qingyuan and Jin Ziyu had arranged a complex array when Shiyu started to retreat. At this time, all the people of Huang Medical Branch stood at the array eyes and resisted desperately. Elder Qi slashed fiercely with the long sword. The array swayed violently. Zhang Chong, who was guarding the array eye, was unstable for a while, and blood overflowed from his mouth, but his feet remained still. "Do you really think a trash array can stop us?" Elder Qi said angrily. "Wei Qingyuan, we are giving you face for your master's sake. If you insist on stopping us, don't blame us for being rude. And you trash of the Huang Medical Branch, just hand over Shiyu obediently. Otherwise, I will let you all die here tragically." Wei Qingyuan didn't speak, but with a pale face, he channeled the spiritual power that was about to be exhausted again to maintain the array. The eyes of several Doctors' Association elders showed vicious determination. Then, they suddenly stood in a row with their hands pressed against each other. Spiritual power was circulating among them, and their cold and mocking eyes glanced at everyone of the Huang Medical Branch. Seeing this scene, Zheng Shouyue suddenly exclaimed, "No, you guys dodge." However, it was already too late. Elder Zhang on the front shouted and launched the spiritual power that gathered at his palms. There was a loud noise. The array, which was about to collapse, was shattered in the violent shock. Wei Qingyuan and Jin Ziyu both fell to the ground, spurting a mouthful of blood. The rest of the Huang Medical Branch were not much better either. Each of them felt burning pain in the dantian, and their blood was surging. They couldn't even stand up. Elder Qi laughed out loud watching this scene, and he rushed toward Heshi impatiently. He must be the first to kill Shiyu so that when the president gave the reward, he would be the biggest contributor. However, just as Elder Qi took a few steps, his legs were dragged by someone. Jin Ziyu lay on the ground, tightly grabbing his legs. His voice was hoarse and determined. "I said, as long as I'm still alive, no one can get close to Shiyu. And me." Qian Dezhuang rushed over, hugged Elder Qi's thigh, and bit hard. Chapter 1405, Very Happy, and Me. "We must protect Shiyu." Elder Qi let out a miserable cry. He took a long time to channel his spiritual power and kicked everyone away one by one. His face was distorted due to madness. He stomped Jin Ziyu down with one foot, stomping his face into the soil, and said sinisterly, "You trash wants to stop me? Great. Since you want to court death, I will fulfill you." Elder Qi raised his long sword and was about to stab Jin Ziyu. Suddenly, a purple shadow rushed toward him. Elder Qi was staggered by the purple shadow. His entire scalp and cheek were in burning pain. The purple whip shadow waved over Heshi, who was sitting cross-legged in meditation as if expressing its determination and anger. Elder Zhang said in a deep voice, "It's Purple Abyss Vine. It's actually the demonic plant Purple Abyss Vine." Purple Abyss Vine's combat power was very strong, especially its enchantment. With the Purple Abyss Vine guarding Shiyu, it would take a lot of effort for them to kill Shiyu. Elder Zhang frowned, but suddenly he heard Lu Zhishi sneered and said, "Elder Zhang, don't worry. I told my father that Shiyu has Purple Abyss Vine, and my father had done the preparation." As she spoke, she took out a black porcelain bottle, poured spiritual power into it, and then threw it in the direction of Purple Abyss Vine. Zizizi, a terrible scorching sound came. The purple vines were shaking wildly, and the rustling of the branches and leaves was like a painful whine. In just a short moment, those purple vines that were originally flying in the air withered. Because of the withering of Purple Abyss Vine, the figure of Heshi sitting cross-legged was quickly revealed. The beautiful young man's skin was as white as snow, and his long eyelashes drooped slightly. In the twilight of the morning light, he looks like the most beautiful and mysterious elf. Just looking at him made people's hearts flutter and want to get close, but they couldn't bear to profane. Lu Zixi originally kept her image of a fairy and let others deal with Heshi. However, seeing this scene, her pretty face was almost distorted into a hideous face. Shi Yu is obviously a man. How can he still have an appearance that is not inferior to mine? How can he be favored by King of Hell Nangongyu? I want to kill him. I must destroy him with my own hands. Lu Zhixi's eyes were slightly red. She held a poison dagger in her hand as she walked toward Shiyu step by step. Shiyu, die now. The dagger, that was shining with purple light, was raised high and stabbed fiercely at the cross-legged Shiyu. Suddenly, there was a snap. A vine slapped Lu Zhixi's face and hand hard. Lu Zixi defended in a hurry. The dagger cut through the vine, but she still felt a tearing pain on her face. Her blood dripped down. At the critical moment, Purple Abyss Vine used the last bit of her strength to deflect Lu Zhixi's dagger away. But also because of the extreme poison on the blade, coupled with the corrosive poison just now, it no longer had the spiritual power to sustain her life. The purple vines meandered over at the end, wrapping Heshi gently. The slowly withered leaves rubbed Heshi's warm and delicate cheeks. It was so soft and reluctant, as if she was expressing her attachment and affection. Little Purple can no longer protect you. Master, Little Purple is very happy to meet you, very happy. The purple leaves and vines withered. Even the main root was turned into powder and rotted in the soil. Chapter 1406. Protect to the Death in the Void. A purple seed dropped into the 9th secluded spirit spring, falling into a deep sleep. Lu Zixi clutched her injured face and neck, trying to stand up, but the severe pain made her groan. She channeled spiritual power to heal the wound on her face, but instead of getting better, the wound festered more and more. It even felt itchy. Lu Zixi was terrified. When she saw that Shiyu was safe and sound, the fear and anxiety in her heart turned into deep resentment. Elder Qi, go and tear Shiyu into pieces right now. The sharp sound pierced the eardrums of everyone in the confinement space. Elder Qi just got rid of the entanglement of Chen Dezhuang and the others, then he jumped into the air and stabbed straight at Shiyu. Brother Shiyu! Zhang Yi yelled and rushed toward Shiyu without thinking. With a piercing sound, Elder Qi's sword pierced Zhang Yi's back, and the tip of the sword pierced through Zhang Yi's chest. It was just right next to Heshi's dantian. Just a little bit, Shiyu would die. Zhang Yi held on tightly to the sword that pierced his body, preventing it from hurting Shiyu in the slightest. Then he turned around abruptly and threw a dark red centipede in his hand at Elder Qi, who was relaxed. Elder Qi was caught off guard and was bitten on the nose by the centipede. He shouted and let go of the sword in his hand. Zhang Yi spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground. He smiled. Brother Shiyu, I can finally do something for you. Little E. Zhang Chong uttered a heart-piercing cry, then he rushed toward Elder Qi frantically. Seeing them fighting, Shiyu narrowly escaped death again. Lu Zixi was trembling all over with anger. She wanted to get up, but she felt that her face and neck were getting more and more itchy. She could only sternly shout at the Pioneer Branch students beside her, "Whoever kills Shiyu, I will let you become Academy Student Council's deputy president." The students of the Pioneer Branch looked at each other, and many showed angry expressions of disapproval. But some people's eyes lit up when they heard the deputy president. They approached Shiyu one by one. Everyone, we must defend even to the death. We must defend until Shiyu succeeds in advancing. Yeah, we will defend Shiyu to the death. The Meridian's stage students of Huang Medical Branch, as well as the students from other branches who had just been rescued by Shiyu, surrounded Shiyu. They were all covered in wounds, but no one was willing to take a step back. The elders of the Doctors Association originally thought that killing the defenseless Shiyu would be an easy task, but the bloody and resolute scene shocked everyone. No matter how shocked they were, they would not allow Shiyu to live past today. Elder Zhang raised his hand, and a huge ball of lightning slowly condensed and compressed in his palm. Once it was released, it would be a powerful force that would destroy everything. Unlike the chaos outside, the void fell into a deathly silence at this time. Little Egg and Little Golden Dragon were originally ready to rush out the moment Lu Jishi started. But suddenly, a powerful force swept the entire Sumeru void. Little Egg and the others only felt indescribably comfortable around them, as if their limbs were full of strength. But the eyelids became extremely heavy, then they were on the verge of fainting. Chapter 1407. I will fulfill you. Hushi also sat next to the ninth secluded spirit spring as if in a deep sleep, but in fact, she was suffering from a pain that was like living hell. This was not the first time Hushi advanced, but it was unlike the previous times. Every inch of her bones and meridians had to be torn apart and reshaped. That's right, her body was being torn apart by a powerful force. Afterward, a large amount of energy would flow out from her dantian, wrap around her body and repair her torn body. Flesh and bones were crushed inch by inch, then they were reassembled bit by bit. Such pain was definitely not something ordinary people could bear. Hushi gritted her teeth and persisted. She only had one belief in her heart, that was to live. She must live. The time passed minute by minute as if several hours had passed. It also seemed as if a century had passed. Hushi was almost numb in this pain. Suddenly, an extremely powerful sadness and reluctance came from her divine sense. It seemed to be saying goodbye to her, and it seemed to be gently comforting her, protecting her at all costs. Little Purple, it's Little Purple. What happened? Hushi's frowned tightly. Sweats dripped from her forehead, but it was not because of the pain in his body, but because of the strong anxiety in her heart. She seemed to see countless blood rushing toward her, engulfing Little Purple, her friends, relatives, and her lover. Am I going to lose them? No way. If I lose them, what's the point of working hard so far? Want to really get stronger? Do you want to gain the power of Wood Source and the ability to control the life and death of the others? I want. Even if you will become the target of thousands of people, even if your life will never be peaceful? Hushi took a deep breath and answered word by word in her heart. As long as I can keep the person I care about, I'm willing to bear any price. Okay, I will help you. The first level of source power is unlocked. There was a vague voice in her ears. It sounded like a man but also like a woman. As soon as the last sentence came out, Hushi only felt that the power that was only oozing from her dantian burst out suddenly. In the confinement space, the thunderball in Elder Zhang's hand became smaller and smaller, but it exuded terrifying power. Then he threw it toward Hushi with a cold expression. Feng Yuan didn't even think about it. He rushed over to cover Hushi with his body. His body was trembling with fear, but he refused to take a step back. Hong En, Zhang Chong, and countless students of the Huang medical branch also rushed over. At that moment, they even forgot how dangerous the Thunderball was and how dangerous the attack of nascent soul stage martial artists was. They only thought about saving Shiyu's life. There were many elders and students at Miracle Healer Academy who recognized this attack. Dean Huang panicked and shouted, "Get out of the way, it's a hurricane thunderstorm. The surrounding area will be flattened. Not only can you not save Shiyu, you will die too." Everyone heard Dean Huang's shout, but no one retreated. Some of the students of the Miracle Healer Academy couldn't help turning their heads, and tears slid down from their eyes. Boom! The violent sound shook the sky. Several trees in the confinement space were shaken to the ground. Dean Huang covered his face dejectedly, full of unwillingness and anger. He didn't dare to look at those students and didn't dare to imagine how bloody their corpses were. Chapter 1408. Perfect stage advance. However, a student suddenly exclaimed, How is it possible? They are all fine. Shiyu is all right." Dean Huang opened his eyes suddenly, and he saw the rolling dust settling. Finally, the students of Huang Medical Branch appeared in the center of the thunderstorm. They were all covered in dust and their hair was disheveled, but they didn't have the slightest injury on their bodies. "We didn't die?" Everyone looked at each other in dismay. There was the joy of surviving death. What happened? In the next moment, the world shook, and a dazzling light bloomed brilliantly. Palala, thousands of birds flew up from the forest, leaped into the sky, and swooped down again. Cha-cha-cha. This is hundreds of millions of insects and ants crawling out of the cave, moving desperately in one direction. Sha-sha-sha. These were countless flowers and trees shaking their branches and leaves, telling the crazy joy and yearning. The magical beast forest was like a sleeping monster that suddenly woke up. All things were in joy and vegetation grew wildly, just to welcome the arrival of the wood source. There were colorful clouds in the sky. There were crackling lightning and thunder in the clouds as if there would be a thunder calamity at any time, but when they reached the top of Shiyu's head, they condensed into whirlpools and emitted a dazzling white light. Heshi, who was sitting cross-legged against the rock, suddenly floated up into the air. The white light formed by the vortex enveloped her, making it impossible to see the scene inside. Deputy Dean Jiang kept staring blankly. Until this scene appeared, he said in a trembling tone, "It's a perfect stage advance. It's actually a perfect stage advance." All eyes fell on Shiyu, but at this moment, the dazzling white light had completely enveloped Shiyu, making it difficult to see her clearly. The elders of the Doctors' Association all looked extremely ugly, but most of them were shocked and unbelievable. Those of them who were doctors knew better than anyone how impossible it was to advance to the perfect stage. Even in the Siam continent, there was no one out of 10,000 people who could reach the perfect stage. But this was only in Miluo continent. Someone actually did it. Elder Zhang suddenly opened his mouth and said in a hoarse and sharp voice, "How is it possible? Isn't he at the foundation establishment stage? Even if he advances, he should break through the meridian stage, but this spiritual power and this thunder calamity are clearly signs of condensing the gold core. He is breaking through to the gold core stage. Gold core stage. From the foundation establishment stage directly to the gold core stage. How could such an unimaginable thing happen? However, at this moment, it happened clearly before everyone's eyes. Lu Jishi shook her head crazily. Her whole face was distorted ferociously. Because of the wound caused by Purple Abyss Vine, the originally elegant and noble fairy Jishi now looked like an ugly female ghost. She kept shouting in her mouth, "Impossible! Impossible! Shiyu is just a trash. How could he advance to the perfect stage? How could he advance to the gold core stage? I want him to die, I want him to die. I want him to die immediately." As Lu Jishi said that, she screamed hysterically, "You all go and kill Shiyu before he advances. Kill him! Kill him!" The faces of the elders of the Doctors' Association became more and more serious. They also realized that if they could not kill Shiyu now, the consequences would be unimaginable later. Chapter 1409. Birds, Beasts, Ants. This was their last chance. Elder Zhang took out a long sword in his hand and pointed at Heshi. "Kill him at all costs." Elder Zhang hadn't finished speaking when an elder screamed suddenly. Everyone looked over in astonishment, then they widened their eyes wide in horror. That the elder's body was covered with all kinds of poisonous insects at some point. No matter how he used spiritual power to drive them away, these poisonous insects seemed to be fearless. They got into his eyes, ears, mouth and nose one by one. Ah! The elder let out a miserable scream. He finally threw away his long sword and rolled on the ground. A dignified nascent soul stage martial artist was forced into a panic by a group of bugs. He forgot about attacking and killing, only screaming in fear. A similar situation happened to other elders of the Doctors' Association. Some of them were attacked by countless trees and vines. All their magic weapons were swept away by the vines. Some of them suddenly had a hole under their feet. Their feet sank into it and got bitten by something. They couldn't break free from it. Countless bird pooped feces into their eyes, blurring their vision, then thousands of birds swooped down and pecked their eyes blind. The people of the Huang medical branch were all stunned by this scene. They were dumbfounded staring at the people of the Miracle Healer Academy who suddenly became distraught. Qian Dezhuang wiped the sweat from his face and laughed. "What's going on? Why do the birds, beasts, Insects and ants in the forest seem to be crazy. But it feels so good to see these bastards in a mess. Chen Xiaofeng swallowed a fishy sweetness in his throat. He thought that his Dantian meridians would be torn apart due to overusing spiritual power, but when he channeled spiritual power, he suddenly found that his whole body was very comfortable as if he was not injured at all. De Zhuang, do you find it strange? Strange about what? Why do these insects only attack the people of the Doctors' Association, but not us? Qian de Zhuang took it for granted. Of course it's because these beasts are so devoid of conscience that the insects and birds despise them. Chen Xiaofeng's mouth twitched, then he said, "Have you noticed that our wounds are healing?" Qian de Zhuang was taken aback. When he was about to check, Zhang Chang's crying voice came from not far away. "Little E, how are you?" However, before Zhang Chong could finish crying, his eyes widened in shock. Because he found that the fatal wound on his brother's chest was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Immediately afterward, everyone in Huang Medical Branch, including Wei Qingyuan, discovered that their wounds were healing. Their exhausted spiritual power was slowly filling up. What the hell is going on here? Jin Ziyu's eyes swept over Hexai with a hint of worry. Suddenly, he caught a glimpse of something and immediately said in a deep voice, "Look, what is that?" Everyone followed his gaze and saw that the depths of the magical beast forest were shining with silver light, illuminating the brightened sky like a scorching sun. That silver light continued to spread around as if it wanted to cover the entire magical beast forest. Jin Ziyu immediately said, "It seems that our injuries can be healed immediately. These birds, beasts, insects and ants suddenly go crazy because of this white light. What is this exactly?" Chapter 1410. Original face. Sure enough, as soon as Jin Ziyu said this, they originally wondered if He caused all this, but they quickly focused on the white light. Many people wondered in amazement what happened to the magical beast forest. The white vortex emitted a dazzling white light, covering He and making it difficult for people to see what happened inside. Therefore, no one saw that the green light representing the source of life was continuously emitting from He in the white light. Then it leaked into the air because it could not be completely covered. It was the leak of that little bit of wood source that caused the entire magical beast forest to wake up and all living beings fell into madness. Even Jin Ziyu was just guessing that these changes might be related to Shiyu. Just in case it would arouse fear and covetousness from others, he directed everyone's attention in another direction. However, among all the people present, there was still one person who noticed the leaked wood source. Tong Bing raised his head, staring at the glaring white vortex with scorching eyes. In those clear and pitiful deer-like eyes, there were gloom and greed churning in the depth. Wood spiritual root, pure wood spiritual power, it's mine. I must snatch it. I must. Thinking of this, Tong Bing quietly walked around behind He, then his body slowly floated up. Because of the chaos in the confinement space, coupled with the cover of the white vortex, no one noticed Tong Bing's actions at this moment. After approaching He, Tong Bing's deer-like eyes flickered for a while and gradually turned into beast-like vertical pupils. His hand also began to condense beastkin aura. Yes, not spiritual power but beastkin aura. It slowly penetrated through the white vortex. The wood spiritual power that originally spread around the forest slowly converged toward Tong Bing's palm after Tong Bing made a move. There was an ecstatic light on Tong Bing's face. It was wood spiritual power, pure and vigorous wood spiritual power. It was even 1,000 times purer than the wood spiritual root he originally had. Even if he only absorbed this bit of leaked aura, his dantian began to expand, and his spiritual power became full. If he could devour the entire wood spiritual root. Tong Bing let out a low laugh. He rushed toward the center of the vortex. "Shiyu, don't blame me. You're the only one to blame. You are so cruel. I have begged you so much, and you still refuse to take care of me. You're the only one to blame. Why did you seduce Brother Xianmu and let me fall to the point where I was abandoned by everyone?" In the white mist of the confinement space, there was another person or another beastkin who saw this scene clearly. Li Yu originally hoped to secretly rescue Shiyu after the corpse puppet virus broke out to repay her life-saving grace. Who knows, she saw this person. She remembered Tong Bing, this bastard, who repaid kindness with enmity. She remembered this bad guy who ruined brother Feng Luan's kindness. Feng Luan and his older brother Feng Shan were originally two kind beastkins. Even being imprisoned by humans, being tortured constantly, and being robbed of their inheritance power, they didn't hate humans because of it. But because of this person, this young man who was also caught. When he first came, he was so weak, so pitiful, and so innocent, so he tricked brother Feng Shan to care and love him, treating him as his best friend. Chapter 14:11. I am kind, but what happened in the end? In the end, he actually took advantage of brother Feng Shan's kindness to forcefully rob brother Feng Shan of his beast-kin aura, causing him to die of exhaustion. Brother Feng Shan died, but Tong Bing got freedom because he got a new power. It was also at that time that brother Feng Luan hated humans to the extreme. Li Yu bit her lower lip tightly. Her almond eyes were red and hot, and tears were streaming down her face. Brother Feng Shan was such a good beastkin. He had kindness toward all humans and beastkins. How could Tong Bing do this? How could he be so shameless and ruthless? Now, he even wanted to harm my savior. Li Yu gritted her teeth fiercely, soared into the air, and also flew toward the white vortex. I must stop this bad guy. Li Yu flew into the vortex desperately. In order to speed up, even half of her body turned into the Yu Min bird. When she came to the vortex, she saw the powerful beastkin power exuding from Tong Bing's body, madly absorbing Shiyu's with spiritual power. Shiyu, who was floating cross-legged in midair, was still at the last moment of advancing. She was unable to resist or move, but her face turned pale. Beads of sweat oozed from her forehead. Without even thinking about it, Li Yu flicked her wings and launched a gust of wind toward Tong Bing. Tong Bing staggered by the wind. He suddenly froze when he met Li Yu's angry eyes. Li Yu said with a frosty face, "Tong Bing, do you still remember me? Do you remember Feng Shan and brother Feng Luan?" A flash of panic flashed in Tong Bing's eyes. He took a step back in midair, muttering, What are you talking about? I don't know you. You don't know me?" Li Yu raised her voice. "How did brother Feng Shan treat you? How did brother Feng Luan treat you? How could you do this? How could you repay kindness with enmity and drain brother Feng Shan's beastkin power? Tong Bing, are you still human? Are you not afraid of retribution?" "No. I have no choice." Tong Bing yelled hysterically. His trembling voice was loud as if he was desperately trying to convince himself, "I just want to live. I didn't do it on purpose. It's Feng Shan's fault. Since he gave me beastkin power to keep me alive, why didn't he give me more? Why couldn't he fulfill me and let me be free? It's his fault, that's why I had to suck him dry. It's all his fault. It has nothing to do with me. I'm kind." Listening to his words, Li Yu trembled all over her body, but this little beastkin didn't stay in the human world for long. She didn't even learn how to curse people, so she could only keep repeating, "Tong Bing, you will die horribly. You will face your retribution. You will definitely have retribution. And Shiyu, I heard that he is your classmate and even your roommate, but you want to suck him up now. Tong Bing, are you still human?" Tong Bing's body trembled violently. He lowered his head to his chest. Listening to Li Yu's words, his body trembled more and more. Li Yu thought he was feeling guilt, so she couldn't help but soften her voice slightly. "If you really know that you are wrong, return the spiritual power you absorbed from Shiyu." Before she finished, Tong Bing jumped up suddenly. A huge beastkin power instantly enveloped Li Yu's whole body. Li Yu's eyes widened in horror, only feeling that her beastkin power was pouring toward Tong Bing at a rapid speed. "You!" Chapter 14:12. Devour. What responded to her was Tong Bing's distorted and ferocious face. There was no more shyness and innocence on this face. Only naked greed and madness were left. "As long as you die, no one will know about it. Yes, you are just an animal. I know. Glittering teardrops dropped from the corners of Liyu's eyes. Her body shrank slowly, and her face was covered with feathers. The beastkin power she had cultivated for thousands of years was gone at this moment, making her regress into an ordinary Yumin bird. Tong Bing didn't abandon her until there was no trace of beastkin power in Liyu's body. However, this Yumin bird still fluttered its wings and refused to leave. Its bright eyes looked at the cross-legged Heshi with guilt and pain as if tears were about to fall. Tong Bing slowly floated to Heshi's side, and he sneered. His face was filled with cold madness. "Ha, Shiyu. Shiyu. You'll be a trash in no time. Shiyu, you have always looked down on me from such a high position. Have you ever thought you would end up to this?" A more powerful and majestic beastkin power was condensed in Tong Bing's hand that slowly approached Heshi's dantian. This was the brand new power he obtained after devouring Feng Shan, allowing him to devour beastkin power and other people's spiritual power for his own use. He didn't use it before because he hoped to be a good person, a kind and weak person, longing to be protected by someone like Xian Mu. But now Tong Bing found that, instead of being weak and begging, the most reliable way was to take the power of others and make himself stronger. Heshi's dantian was getting closer and closer, and the beastkin power had already felt the majestic with spiritual power. Tong Bing grinned and suddenly activated the beastkin power. The next moment, the smile on his face froze, then it shattered inch by inch like petrification. On the other side of him, Heshi, who hadn't woken up after the advancement, finally slowly opened her eyes. The pair of clear and cold phoenix eyes stared straight at Tong Bing. There was a faint and cold smile in the eyes, as if mocking and as if casually teasing. Devour human spiritual root and beastkin power? What a rare ability! The faint and clear voice sounded in his ears. Heshi sneered with a bright and gorgeous smile. "It just happens that I also have the same skill. Why don't we try whose devouring ability is stronger?" Maha Inheritance, Level 3, Devour. Whether it is spiritual power, beastkin power, monster essence pill, gold core stage or nascent soul stage. As long as the opponent is actively attacking, Maha Inheritance can choose to devour. In the elusive forest that day, Heshi was able to escape from the belly of the rank 7 black bear due to this skill. Tong Bing's eyes widened in horror. His body trembled unceasingly. He desperately wanted to take back his beastkin power and his hand, but it seemed that Shiyu had fixed him with something. He couldn't move at all. The beastkin power that had been gathered in the body with great difficulty poured out crazily. His devouring ability was so powerful, but facing Shiyu he had no strength to fight back. As the swallowed beastkin power was exhausted, Tong Bing felt that his spiritual power was pouring out. His mouth grew wide and his teeth chattered. At this moment, Tong Bing felt the fear of extinction. "Brother, Shiyu, forgive me. I didn't mean to. I won't dare again." Chapter 14:13. Settle the scores. Tears fell from his eye sockets like a broken thread. Tong Bing's eyes had already turned into the usual deer eyes that filled with mist and tears. He looked at Heshi with indescribably pity. "Chirp, chirp, chirp." Yumin bird on the side flapped her wings desperately as if she was conveying something to Heshi. Heshi's eyes were cold, but her sneer was deeper. "Not bad, your crying is pitiful and touching enough. It's a pity that your credit has gone bankrupt." As soon as the words were finished, Tong Bing only felt a sharp pain like being torn apart. He clearly felt that his spiritual power disappeared, and his vitality was also slowly wandering away. Tong Bing raised his hands and saw his white hair. Panic, despair, hatred and madness made him widen his mouth and let out a dreadful scream. Until this moment he finally felt Feng Shan's pain and desolation of life force being taken away little by little before his death. However, Tong Bing didn't have the slightest bit of guilt or remorse, only hatred toward Shiyu. "If I have another chance, I will definitely drain Shiyu's with spiritual power immediately. I will make Shiyu die." Bang! Heshi kicked out Tong Bing, who had been almost drained of all his vitality. Tong Bing flew far away and flew straight for hundreds of meters before hitting a tree trunk. His spine broke and he fell to the ground. At this time, no one cared about Tong Bing's life and death. Heshi Rain fused the beastkin power absorbed from Tong Bing back into Yumin Bird. Li Yu slowly opened her eyes, feeling that she had turned into a 14-years-old girl. Finally, she couldn't help sobbing softly. Thank you for saving me again. Heshi didn't pay attention to her thanks. She just said indifferently, whatever you saw today, don't tell anyone or any beastkin. Heshi couldn't imagine how many people would hunt and kill her if she was found to have a sky spiritual root of the wood's spiritual power in her body. Li Yu nodded again and again, then she turned into Yumin Bird and flew out quietly. Heshi took a deep breath. Feeling the 5-element spiritual powers in her body, she smiled with satisfaction. Very good, the wood's spiritual power has been perfectly hidden. Now, it's time to go and settle the scores with those people. There was a loud noise. The dazzling white vortex burst from the inside. The wind was strong. The sun and the moon were dark. All the people who were still fighting and in a hurry raised their heads and stared upward. Even the insects, birds, plants and trees quieted down as if they had been ordered. In the sky, a young man wearing a blue and white Miracle Healer Academy uniform floated down slowly. Her black hair was like ink, her skin was like jade, and her clear face was brighter than the moonlight, brighter than the scorching sun. Everyone's eyes were dazzled for a while. Heshi landed slowly. Her cold phoenix eyes shone with purple light as she glanced at everyone present and stopped at the elders of the Doctors' Association. None of you are dead yet, that's great. If I can't kill you with my own hands, I will feel very troubled. Those who dared to hurt my little purple, those who dared to hurt my Huang medical branch, are you ready to pay back? All the trees in the forest rustled, and the birds took off with flapping wings. Chapter 14:14. Instant kill. The white mist that originally enveloped the crowd disappeared without a trace as if they had received some order. The confinement space was dispelled. Everyone in Huang medical branch stared blankly at the young man who seemed to be shining brightly under the sun. Everyone couldn't help crying with joy. Shiyu is back. Shiyu is really back. The elders of the Doctors' Association all took a step back. Suddenly they felt as if their breath was choked by something. They felt the fear of death for a while. As soon as Elder Qi took a step back, he said angrily in shock, "So what if he is powerful? So what if it is a perfect advancement? He is just at the gold core stage. We have so many nascent soul stage, why are we afraid of him? I'll teach this brat a lesson." As Elder Qi spoke, he clenched the long sword in his hand and rushed toward Heshi. However, Heshi didn't seem to care Elder Qi's movements at all. She spread her slender fingers lightly and looked at her and jade-like palm in a leisurely manner. A slender sword glowing with colorful light slowly appeared in her palm. "Hi, buddy." Heshi held the hilt of Li Shui's sword with a faint smile. "Now, I can finally unleash your true strength." She had never understood how powerful the upgraded Li Shui sword was. Until today, she could finally touch that realm. The long sword swung lightly, drawing a beautiful arc in the air. "I'll kill you." Before Elder Qi could finish his words, his eyes suddenly widened in horror. He slowly lowered his head and looked at his body in shock. His body was split in half bit by bit. A viscous liquid seeped out from the severed part. Gold core stage vs nascent soul stage, instant kill. Heshi flicked the Li Shui sword that was not stained with any liquid, smiled and looked at the terrified Doctors' Association's elders not far away. She said in a clear and sweet voice, "Who is next? Or, you all want to go together?" At this time, in the magical beast forest, which was more than 10 miles away from the heavenly mulberry sacred tree, Lu Shuyang's face was gloomy. He looked unwillingly in the direction of the shining white light not far away. Just now, almost just now, heavenly mulberry sacred tree was about to become his possession. However, all of a sudden, the heavenly mulberry sacred tree, which had been slowly withering, suddenly revived again as if it had received some kind of life force. Immediately afterward, the power of the nether beastkin bead was swallowed by a mysterious energy, and the soft light of the sacred tree bloomed again. The intruders who did not belong to the magical beast forest were also expelled from the range of the divine light. Beside the sacred tree, the beastkins who were originally wounded watched their wounds heal one by one. The air seemed to be filled with a powerful source of life power, allowing them to recover from desperation and regain life and hope. Rank 9 tree beastkin watched his scorched branches slowly sprout, and tears streamed from his eyes. They knelt down one by one and kowtowed to the heavenly mulberry sacred tree. "Thank you for the blessing, sacred tree. Without sacred tree, our beastkin clan would have been wiped out." Unexpectedly, the heavenly mulberry sacred tree suddenly trembled violently. The silvery leaves rubbed against each other and made a rustling sound. The colorful light on the freshly grown flowers and fruits kept flickering as if telling the urgency and desire of the heavenly mulberry sacred tree. The beastkins looked at each other, not knowing what happened. Chapter 14:15. Huge power. At this moment, an old and ethereal voice came from the space. It sounded very far away and very near. "Wood source, it is wood source. I need it to save me." The voice was intermittent. It was saying with difficulty. But the beastkins understood it. Because they understood it, that they were extremely shocked. Only the rank 9 tree beastkin's eyes shone with blazing light. He tremblingly said, "Is it really wood source? Let's go and report to the king. We must let the owner of wood source saves heavenly mulberry sacred tree." "Grandpa tree beastkin, why save the heavenly mulberry sacred tree?" A beastkin asked curiously. "Isn't heavenly mulberry sacred tree alive?" No. Rank 9 tree beastkin shook his head again and again. His face was full of urgency and joy, because the heavenly mulberry sacred tree has been protecting us and absorbing the filthy aura from us, so we beastkins can successfully transfigure human figures. But because of absorbing too much filthy aura, the heavenly mulberry sacred tree has become extremely weak. The tree heart has been completely corroded. The only thing that can purify the filthy aura is the wood source. This is the only chance of the heavenly mulberry sacred tree, and it is also the greatest chance of our beastkin. According to the guidance of the heavenly mulberry sacred tree, the person who owns the wood source is in the direction of the forest. We must find him as soon as possible. The beastkins all exclaimed in unison. The rank 9 tree beastkin rushed to inform the beastkin king, while the other beastkins continued to stand beside the heavenly mulberry sacred tree full of anticipation and urgency. However, none of these beastkins noticed that behind a huge pine tree, there was a man wearing a scholar robe. Lu Shuyang possessed beastkin power. Although he was expelled by heavenly mulberry sacred tree at first, after he completely covered up his human aura with beastkin aura, heavenly mulberry sacred tree couldn't notice him. Originally, Lu Shuyang's heart was full of resentment. The heavenly mulberry sacred tree would soon belong to him, but it was in vain in the end. But now, hearing the conversation between heavenly mulberry sacred tree and beastkins, the disappointment in Lu Shuyang's eyes instantly turned into deep ecstasy. Did I hear it right? Wood source, and it is a human or beastkin who owns the wood source. What does that represent? Is it the purest and rarest wood spiritual root? If I get this wood spiritual root, what a huge power I would have. Growing flesh from bone, reviving the dead? Those are just trivial matters. More importantly, I can dominate the growth and death of all things, I can communicate with the nature, and I can become the master of one world. Flames were burning in Lu Shuyang's eyes. He turned and rushed toward the direction pointed by heavenly mulberry sacred tree without hesitation. I remember that there is the direction where the confinement space array is located. In other words, the one who owns the wood source was either a student or an elder of Miracle Healer Academy or a beastkin of the magical beast forest. No matter who it is, I will definitely find it. Because of the arrival of the wood source, the Toad Jade Palace also underwent a change. The heavenly mulberry sacred tree had not recovered enough, so the range of the divine light did not include the Jade Toad Palace. However, due to the arrival of the wood source, the beastkins, who were seriously injured and dying, all recovered. Even Feng Yuan's hand, which had been cut off, had regenerated its skeleton and was covered with flesh and blood. Golden Wolf and others were stunned. They never thought that such a change would happen. Chapter 14:16. Turning point. Many beastkins had their limbs and tendons cut off and their skin was stripped away, so they were useless as a pile of meat. Therefore, they didn't even tie them up. However, all of a sudden, these beastkins were healed. Even the skin that was stripped off grew out under their eyes. Golden Wolf's eyes widened. He gasped loudly, "How is this possible?" The Beastkin King's reaction was extremely fast. With a wave of the red robe, those beastkins were gathered in the secret room. He also retreated inside and used the last bit of spiritual power to quickly set up a defensive barrier. Golden Wolf was too astounded for a moment. He watched all the beastkins run away, and his whole face twisted in anger. "Beastkin King, what the hell have you done?" Before Beastkin King could speak, Feng Yuan on the side was already looking at the far east. He knelt and kowtowed excitedly in the direction of the silver light. "It's the sacred tree! It's the sacred tree that blessed us! It's the sacred tree that saved us again!" Many beastkins had not yet been liberated from the emotions of despair, pain, and hatred. At this time, they slowly came back to their senses. Seeing their intact bodies and regrown flesh, they burst into tears of joy and kowtowed in the direction of the heavenly mulberry sacred tree. All beastkins thought that their salvation was due to the gift of the heavenly mulberry sacred tree. But only the Beastkin King knew that this was not the case. Heavenly mulberry sacred tree has long been damaged and can't sustain itself. The sudden disappearance of the divine light is definitely due to a fatal attack. Just relying on the heavenly mulberry sacred tree, it is impossible to heal Beastkin's wounds, even if it is the heavenly mulberry sacred tree that was at its peak. Only the wood source. Beastkin King clenched his fists. The pair of peach blossom eyes shone brightly. God really favors our beastkin. Today was their desperation and tribulation, but it was also their turning point and hope. Golden Wolf took a deep breath and suppressed the resentment in his heart. He already believed the words of these beastkins. It was the resurrection of the heavenly mulberry sacred tree that gave these beastkins a chance to escape. That Lu Shuyang is so useless. I even gave him 2 nether beastkin beads, but he couldn't even take down that damn tree. However, these animals, do they really think that they can escape from my hands? If I can catch them once, I can catch them twice or thrice. Golden Wolf sneered. Beastkin King, if I saw it correctly, even if the wounds on these little beastkins are healed, the Sanskrit voodoo elusive silk in your body cannot be dispelled. You can only exert 30% of your strength at best. How long do you think you can hold me with this little power? You are all going to be enslaved by us in the end. Why don't you come out obediently? Do you think you can change your miserable fate of being a slave by hiding in there? Beastkin King's face was still a little pale. He sneered, "Of course there is a difference. I know that you can break this defensive barrier sooner or later, but you will also have to pay a high price. What's more, if the barrier really can't hold, we can explode ourselves. Don't you want our beastkin inheritance power? If we are dead, you will get nothing. Humans, do you still feel that there is no difference in all this?" Chapter 14:17. Would rather die. Golden Wolf's angry complexion was twisted. The hands hanging by his side were tightly clenched. "Yes, that's the damn difference. Just a slight carelessness, I lost the initiative. Go. Use all the magic weapons and blast the defensive barrier in the shortest possible time. I don't believe that all of them have the guts to commit suicide." Golden Wolf's words made all the martial artists move. The lowest level of these martial artists was at the nascent soul stage, and the highest level was at the soul-splitting stage. Every attack was unbearable for ordinary people. Bang, there was a loud noise. The defensive barrier swayed violently. In the secret room, Beastkin King's face was pale. He spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood soaked the blood-red robe. The strong smell of blood spread in the room. "King, please don't support the barrier anymore. Leave us alone." All beastkins finally couldn't help crying. King, with your ability, you will be able to escape by yourself. I beg you to leave quickly. We don't regret dying. I only hope that King will avenge us in the future. All the beastkins knelt down in front of the red-robed and black-haired beastkin king, crying and begging. Some beastkin even raised their sharp claws and wanted to commit suicide, but the beastkin king stopped them. He pursed his chapped lips and said with a leisurely smile, "Since you called me king, how can I run away alone? Without you, am I still king?" Beastkin King's voice was slightly hoarse and unusually calm, but the words made several young beastkins couldn't help crying out. The Beastkin King took a deep breath, looked at Golden Wolf who was madly attacking the barrier with his deep and cold eyes, and said with a low smile, "I said, even if I die, you will have to pay a high price. I always do as I say." As Beastkin King said, he glanced at the little beastkins around him and slowly said, "Are you afraid of death?" "We are not afraid. Rather than being captured by the despicable humans, we would rather die. King, please go first. We are all not afraid of death." "Great." The young man in a red robe showed a seemingly gorgeous and innocent smile on his face. "I also feel that rather than letting these humans succeed, it is better to die with them." As soon as Beastkin King finished speaking, his hands joined together suddenly, forming a weird symbol. The next moment his lips turned a bright crimson red, then he spat out a red light ball. As soon as the red light ball appeared, everyone saw what it was. It was a fiery red toad. It was only fist size, but it emitted a terrifying flame that could burn iron and stone into ashes. "Ah!" Beastkins exclaimed and retreated one after another. Most of them didn't know what this thing was. They just felt incomparable fear and awe in their hearts when they saw it. With the appearance of the fiery red toad, the entire Toad Jade Palace suddenly trembled violently. Most of the palace had already collapsed. Even the foundation began to crack and collapse. When the fire toad appeared, the Toad Jade Palace collapsed and the magical beast forest was turned upside down. Beastkin King suddenly opened his eyes. The gorgeous peach blossom eyes turned into vertical pupils, shining with a terrifying bloody light. Golden Wolf gasped. For the first time, a bad premonition surged in his heart. Chapter 14:18. Jade Fire Toad and tens of miles away, Hashi, who was playing with the elders of the Doctors Association, suddenly froze. Her sharp and suspicious eyes suddenly looked in the direction of Toad Jade Palace, and the ground under her feet made a buzzing sound. In the void, Little Golden Dragon and Little Egg, who just woke up and haven't even figured out the situation, screamed anxiously. "Boss, it's Jade Fire Toad. I feel it. It must be Jade Fire Toad." "Mom, I feel it too. It is something that can heal Daddy. Hurry up. I feel that it is dying. Mom, hurry up and grab it." Hearing the words Jade Fire Toad, Hashi was no longer in the mood to deal with people like the Doctors Association. The Li Shui sword soared into the sky. Thousands of sword lights turned into the scythe of death and slashed toward Elder Zhang of the Doctors Association. Elder Zhang's eyes were full of fear. He desperately took out a protective robe and put it on his head. Shla! There was a terrifying tearing sound. Elder Zhang's eyes popped out with despair. Looking at those sword lights tore the robe into pieces and eventually went through his body mercilessly. No! For a moment, everyone in the nearby area was silent. Only the screams of Elder Zhang before his death echoed in the area. Li Shui's sword circled and returned to Heshi's hand deftly. Heshi's cold gaze swept over the few remaining elders of the Doctors Association elders as well as Lu Jishi, whose face was stained with blood and eyes were full of resentment and horror. When Lu Jishi spoke, she realized that her voice was trembling violently. "Shiyu, what are you doing? You kill the elders of the Doctors Association like this? My father will not let you go." Before Lu Jishi finished speaking, Hashi flicked her finger suddenly. A black pill flew into Lu Jishi's mouth with a whiz. Lu Jishi's voice stopped abruptly, then her body trembled. She swallowed the pill with a thud. "What the hell did you feed me?" The screams sounded hysterically with fear. But Hashi just sneered said, Aren't you very afraid when will the corpse puppet virus in your body trigger? I just help you to advance that a little, but this is not the corpse puppet virus that will turn you into an insane monster, but a mutated poison that will make your whole body fester. I believe you will definitely like this poison. Lu Jishi shook her head desperately with horror. She channeled the spiritual power to poison in her body, but with the channeling of the spiritual power, dense black spots appeared one after another on her jade-white wrist like livor mortis. No. No. Help me. Quick, someone help me. Seeing the disgusting appearance of her arm, Lu Jishi was about to go crazy. She rushed to the elders of the Doctors Association and the deans of the Miracle Healer Academy, but everyone stepped back when seeing the black spots all over her and smelling the strong rancid smell. No one was willing to get close to her. Ah! Lu Jishi let out a scream. Finally, she couldn't stand it anymore and passed out on the ground. Heshi took out some more medicine bottles, handed them to Zheng Shouyue, and said lightly, "Dean Zheng, this is the medicine to detoxify the corpse puppet virus. You let everyone who has been scratched by the magic beast take it. After half an hour, the virus will be removed completely." Chapter 1419. Never let go. Those students who had been worried about the corpse puppet virus in their bodies burst into smiles when they heard this. Heshi glanced coldly at those from the pioneer branch who joined the attack and said with a half-smile, "As for those who deserve to die, please don't waste my medicine." Zheng Shouyue nodded repeatedly, looking at Heshi with excited and complicated eyes. He had valued her from the very beginning and regarded her as the most outstanding genius. But Zheng Shouyue didn't expect that he still underestimated Shiyu's strength and talent. Now, even Zheng Shouyue couldn't see through Shiyu's true strength. He even felt that he wasn't her opponent at all. Heshi gave the antidote of the corpse puppet virus to Zheng Shouyue, then she walked quickly to Li Qingchuan, took out another bottle of medicinal pills and said faintly, "Although this is not the antidote for the spirit lock pill, it has the opposite effect of the spirit lock pill, and its effect is greater." Li Qingchuan took the medicinal pills with trembling hands, and his eyes were filled with tears. I expelled you from the Heaven Medical Branch. Why do you still save me?" Heshi smiled indifferently. "You wanted to help me just now, didn't you? Besides, I also want to ask Dean Li for help." "Say it as long as I can do it." Heshi glanced coldly at the elders of the Doctors Association who had not yet fallen, and she said coldly, "I don't have time to deal with these people now. Watch them for me and don't let anyone run away. If anyone dares to run away, kill without mercy." Li Qingchuan looked at those people, and there was a burst of anger in his eyes. He nodded without hesitation. Doctors Association actually tried to snatch Miracle Healer Academy. They really deserved to die 10,000 times. Li Qingchuan and Deputy Dean Jiang looked at each other. They saw the resolute cruelty in each other's eyes. Since the Doctors Association was heartless, then don't blame them for being unjust. Even if Shiyu didn't say anything, they would never let this group of people go, let alone the instigator behind them, Lu Shuyang. The remaining elders of the Doctors Association saw the elders of Miracle Healer Academy, who took the antidote, exuded a sharp and powerful aura, and fear surged in their minds. At this moment, they finally felt the despair of being cornered. At this time, Heshi was speeding on the way to Toad Jade Palace. It wasn't that Heshi didn't want to finish off the elders of the Doctors Association, but those elders were martial artists at the nascent soul stage after all. Unless she went all out, otherwise she couldn't easily kill them with a single strike. Most importantly, Heshi felt something was wrong with her body. When she first advanced, she felt that she was full of strength. She even had the illusion that she could crush even the peak of the nascent soul stage or even the powerhouse at the soul-splitting stage. However, when the wood's spiritual power that originally radiated outside was completely withdrawn, Heshi felt that her strength slowly returned to the normal level. She was at the early stage of the gold core stage, but she had a real strength that could rival the nascent soul stage, intermediate stage, or even later stage. But that was only 1 versus 1 situation. If she was besieged by a group of nascent soul stages, she would definitely die without suspense. However, recalling the seemingly invincible state just now, He was still a little dazed. Why did my strength increase so much just now? Where did the huge energy go now? Chapter 14:20, Sneak Attack, Mom, that is the life source of life. The most powerful and precious source of life that everyone covets crazily. The source of life? He repeated in astonishment. Then she discovered that Little Egg was not talking in the void, but talking to her directly with divine sense. This is to prevent other people from hearing it? Even Little Golden Dragon, Xiao Li, and the others? Although Little Egg was talking, his tone was flat and dignified, not like the usual lively Little Egg at all. Yes, the source of life. In God domain, the source of life and the power of vital spirit are called the two greatest and most mysterious forces. Those who get them will control thousands of worlds. The source of life, the power of vital spirit? What is this all about? Vital spirit, why does it sound so familiar? However, He quickly put the thought behind her. Then why do I feel weak again now? Because Mom, you still can't really grasp the power of the source of life. Just now, the powerful spiritual power can make all things pilgrimage, make vegetation grow wildly, resurrect the dead, and regenerate the severed limbs, all because of the leaked source of life. But Mom, you can't really use it yet. If you forcibly use the power of the source of life, it will overdraw Mom's lifespan and talent, so you must not do that. Mom, you must wait until 5 levels of the source powers are unlocked. He frowned. Now she felt that her flight was becoming more and more difficult. Her spiritual power was full, but her vitality and physical strength were extremely overdrawn. In other words, she only had spiritual power and spells now, but she didn't even have the strength to stand up. So, I will become like this now because I have overdrawn my source of life? No, it's not just because of the source of life. The most important thing is because the Sumeru Ring Void is about to. Halfway through speaking, Little Egg stopped abruptly. He heard the anxious voice of Little Golden Dragon. Boss, be careful. A sneak attack. Before Little Golden Dragon finished speaking, He felt a sharp killing intent appear out of thin air. She paused, and her whole body receded like an arrow. The air in front of him slowly fluctuated, and a slender figure of a man in a scholar's long gown slowly appeared. He had a warm smile, but his eyes were flickering with sinister light. Lu Shuyang. She narrowed her eyes suddenly. For such a long time, although she had not dealt with Lu Shuyang directly, it did not mean that she did not know this person. Since she came here, the Doctors' Association had been around her all the time, but now she didn't expect to meet their highest authority. The only rank 10 doctor in Miluo continent and the youngest president of the Doctors' Association, this person was not only unpredictable in strength, but in Hexi's estimation, he was at least at the peak of the nascent soul stage. What was even more terrifying was his strategy. The Doctors' Association also prospered after he took over. Hexi frowned tightly. Even in her prime, she might not be able to beat Lu Xiang. What's more, she didn't have any strength now. She would sweat profusely from moving her feet. The situation was really bad. Lu Shuyang raised his eyebrows. The jealousy flashed in his eyes, but he smiled softly. It turns out to be student Shiyu. I've heard of you for a long time. Ever since I heard that you cured Venerable Huiyu, I've always wanted to see you to discuss medical skills with you. But... Chapter 14:21. It must be. He paused. The light in his eyes was flickering. The sideburns covered half of his gentle face, making it difficult for people to see his expression clearly. But I thought Shiyu was so talented that you had such powerful strength at the foundation establishment stage. It turned out that student Shiyu had been hiding your true strength. You are actually at the gold core stage. Hashi sneered and said, President Lu, why talk so much nonsense while standing in my way? Can you be more straightforward? I don't like guessing about you people who only have ill intentions. Lu Shuyang smiled lightly. Being refuted by Heshi like this, he wasn't angry at all. He just said casually, I just saw the colorful auspicious clouds covering the sky, abnormal phenomenon and brilliant light from the direction Shiyu came from. Do you know what happened? Is someone advancing to the gold core stage perfect stage? Lu Shuyang's eyes turned around He, and his eyes became more gloomy. A few days ago, student Shiyu was at the foundation establishment stage, but now you are at the gold core stage. So, can I guess that the person who had just advanced is you? Shiyu. He squinted and said coldly, so what if I am and if I'm not? I'm not familiar with President Lu, right? Is it necessary to answer your question? A trace of anger flashed in Lu Shuyang's eyes. He had always been respected and feared in Miluo continent. This was the first time someone had treated him so rudely like Shiyu. Especially Shiyu was still a young boy. Lu Shuyang still had a gentle and tolerant smile, but his eyes were already icy cold. Since student Shiyu refuses to say it, then forget it. As he said that, Lu Shuyang walked slowly past He as if he really didn't intend to pursue further. However, the moment they passed by, a blood-red long sword suddenly appeared in Lu Shuyang's hand, stabbing toward He silently. He had already guarded against Lu Shuyang. Li Shui's sword immediately appeared out of thin air. The sharp blade flashed with colorful light, blocking Lu Shuyang's attack with a clang. When Lu Shuyang saw the colorful light emitting from Li Shui's sword, his pupils shrank suddenly. 5 elements flying sword. In Miluo continent, flying swords with dual attributes were extremely rare, let alone flying swords that had 5 elements. 5 elements meant that it even had the wood attribute. A person who could control the 5 elements flying sword must have at least a sky spiritual root with at least 3 attributes. Sky spiritual root of 3 attributes. Lu Shuyang's eyes suddenly lit up. It's Shiyu. The person who has the wood source is Shiyu. It must be. Their long swords separated at the touch. And Lu Shuyang's eyes seemed to be burning with hot flames, staring straight at the handsome young man in front. If other people saw it, they would think that Lu Shuyang loved Shiyu fanatically. However, He saw naked greed and desire in those pupils, just like when Tong Bing approached her, ready to suck her with spiritual root. He also had the devouring ability, but Lu Shuyang was much more difficult to deal with than Tong Bing. In Miluo continent, many people wanted to find out how strong Lu Shuyang's true strength was, but no one succeeded. Because Lu Shuyang not only had powerful magic weapons and superb cultivation, but he also had deadly poison that was hard to guard against. Chapter 1422. The end of power in the past. As long as Lu Shuyang took out those poisons, any martial artist lower than him could only fall into a coma and lose the ability to resist. However, this method did not work for Shiyu today. Lu Shuyang's face was livid. He looked at the young man who had been calm in the green-purple poisonous smoke. There was even a hint of ridicule in her eyes. The jealousy and hatred in his eyes became more intense. Have you ever taken some natural treasures, so you are invulnerable to all poisons? What responded to him was the young man's mocking sneer. To deal with your useless poisonous smoke, do I still need to take medicine that is invulnerable to all poisons? President Lu, haven't you heard that there is always someone higher than you? Do you think that your healing and poisoning skills are unparalleled in the world after being the president for too long? Lu Shuyang's face turned green and white. He had always been most proud of 2 points, medical skills and a character that did not get angry easily. But today, these 2 points were almost shattered by Shiyu. The proudest poison I refined is ridiculed by Shiyu as mere poisonous smoke? That is just a teenager. How could he have such powerful healing and poisoning skills? He, Lu Shuyang, is the most talented doctor and pill refiner in the Miluo continent. I will never admit that I will lose to Shiyu. He smiled slightly. A huge leaf appeared on her hand. This was the leaf of Chinke banana, planted in the void, which was most suitable for repelling poison and smoke. The banana leaf waved, and the smoke that was originally surrounding He floated toward Lu Shuyang. Moreover, there was a pungent and spicy smell in the original green-purple smoke. Obviously, He repaid him with some other materials. Cough, cough, cough. Lu Shuyang coughed violently. His eyes were red, and tears flowed down from his eyes uncontrollably. Heshi leaned against a tree, keeping her exhausted body from falling down, but she said with a leisurely smile, "How about it? Chili smoke and your poisonous smoke, does this taste good?" Lu Shuyang's cultivation was far higher than Heshi's, so of course he was not afraid of her poison, but he never expected that Shiyu did not poison him. She just used an extremely pungent smoke. Lu Shuyang was trembling with anger. He had never been so embarrassed in his life. Damn Shiyu! I must tear him into pieces. Lu Shuyang suddenly soared into the air, and a huge beastkin power with devouring vortex formed in his left palm. In his right hand, he held a long red sword entangled by flames and stabbed straight toward Heshi. Heshi bit her tongue, forcing her blurred consciousness to wake up. She had no strength in her body now. Her divine sense seemed to be torn apart by a huge force, trying to bring her into the sleeping void. There seemed to be a few little guys shouting anxiously in her ears, but she couldn't really hear them. The Li Shui sword was lifted up, but before it met Lu Shuyang's sword, she could no longer hold it. The Li Shui sword fell to the ground with a clanging sound, then it disappeared automatically and returned to void. At this time, Lu Shuyang finally saw that she was exhausted. He immediately laughed, "So you are out of your power. If this is the case, offer your wood spiritual root to me and die obediently." The huge devouring beastkin power enveloped Heshi's dantian. The majestic spiritual power surged toward Lu Shuyang's palm with the devouring power. Chapter 1423. Scared, however, this does not seem to be the wood's spiritual power. There is fire element, water element, and gold element. Lu Shuyang frowned. This is already sky spiritual root of 3 attributes. Could it be that I guess it wrong? The person with the power of wood source is not Shiyu, but someone else? Wait. Lu Shuyang suddenly widened his eyes with shock and disbelief. No, more than 3 elements? Then there are spiritual powers from other lines wrapped in dantian? What element is that? Could it be that Shiyu doesn't have the sky spiritual root of 3 attributes instead of 4 attributes? Just as Lu Shuyang was thinking, he suddenly felt a chill in his mind that horrified him. The next moment, a powerful force suddenly penetrated his chest and abdomen from behind. Ah! Lu Shuyang let out a miserable howl, rolled over and fell on the grass. Blood gushed out from the hole in his chest, soaking the grass and trees. He also felt that all the spiritual power he had devoured from Shiyu was devoured by the powerful force that penetrated his chest and abdomen. Lu Shuyang was shivering and convulsing in pain. He opened his eyes with difficulty, only to see a tall figure. He rushed to Shiyu quickly and carefully carried the almost unconscious young boy. That posture, that movement, as if he was holding a rare treasure. No one was allowed to snatch it. Lu Shuyang's eyes moved up little by little, and he finally saw the man's face. The handsome facial features were like a god descending from the sky, exuding a contemptuous aura all over his body. He obviously looked like a young man in his 20s, but anyone who saw this face would never forget or ignore it. Nangong Yu, the only genius in Miluo continent who advances to the nascent soul stage at the age of 20, King of Hell Nangong Yu. Lu Shuyang clenched his teeth hatefully. A wave of fear and hatred churned in his mind. Today, he was destined to not be able to kill Shiyu, and he would not be able to get the wood source. Moreover, the injury he suffered today would cause permanent damage to him. His cultivation would probably not be able to improve anymore. Nangong Yu, Shiyu, all these are caused by these 2 people. But I, Lu Shuyang, will not give up. One day, I will make these people pay a painful price. A black stone in his hand was crushed, and Lu Shuyang's figure slowly disappeared into the grass, leaving only blood stains all over the ground. At this moment, Nangong Yu's attention was only on Heshi, who had a pale face and was sweating profusely, so he didn't care about Lu Shuyang's life or death. If I was 1 step late, just 1 step, Shia would die at the hands of others. As long as he thought of this possibility, Nangong Yu felt scared for a while. He held Heshi's hand and was about to inject spiritual power, but Heshi's little hand grabbed his hand instead. A low and weak voice came with great urgency. Jade Fire. Jade Fire Toad. You hurry up. Go and get the Jade Fire Toad. That is the only way to save you. Hurry up. As Heshi said, little golden dragon jumped out of the void and looked at Nangongyu anxiously. King of Hell, come with me quickly, Jade Fire Toad is disappearing. If we don't get there in time, it will be too late. What is so important about Jade Fire Toad now? Nangongyu growled, his eyes full of distress and regret. If something happens to you, Sheer, what's the use of me getting 10,000 Jade Fire Toads? Chapter 1424, Void's Second Advancement. I'm fine. Heshi took a deep breath, gritted her teeth, forced her consciousness not to disappear, and said word by word, I have just advanced. I'm fine. Must get it, Jade Fire Toad. After finishing speaking, Heshi couldn't hold on any longer. As her eyes closed, her divine sense sank into the void completely. At this time, in the void, earth-shaking changes were taking place. The vague voice of Old Man Sumeru could seem to be heard. The 9th layer Heavenly Palace, this is Xian Shao. Following the hatching of Little Egg and the opening of the Ling Shao Palace, the Sumeru Void finally ushered in its second advancement. Nangongyu looked at Heshi, who had completely fallen asleep, and he suddenly tightened his arms. At this moment, he seemed to feel that he was holding was a warm corpse, but his sheer was moving away from him little by little. The fear in his heart surged up like a tide, drowning him. King of Hell, let's go there quickly. Otherwise it will be too late. Hurry up. Little Golden Dragon was anxious, swearing in his mind. After bringing you to the Jade Fire Toad, I want to go back to the void. Nangongyu gritted his teeth. Are you sure Sheer is fine? Sure and certain. Little Golden Dragon nodded repeatedly. Even if something happens, it's definitely a good thing. Nangongyu finally heaved a sigh of relief when he heard the words. He didn't say any more, and he didn't even find a place to put Heshi down. He just hugged her sideways and rushed toward the direction Little Golden Dragon was pointing at. Heshi felt as if she had been in a coma for a long time, but she also felt that she had just taken a short nap. But no matter how much time she slept, when she woke up, what greeted her was the Sumeru Void that had changed completely. Looking around, the ancient Rhyme spiritual field where the spiritual plant grew. Although Heshi felt that the ancient Rhyme spiritual field was very large before, this time, the area after the expansion of the void was endless. Moreover, the spiritual plants above were all growing too damn well. Especially those precious spiritual plants transplanted from the sealed dragon domain, such as Golden Bodhi. It was obviously not the time for Bodhi to bear fruit, but now its branches were full of fruits. What surprised Heshi the most was that the alien poppy, that she snatched from the Murong family, that was the cold eating flower. Since it was thrown into the void by her, without the nourishment of virgin blood, it had been languid all the time, but now it was full of energy. Heshi approached and touched it, and she found that the yin qi emanating from it was no longer chilling, but a strange aura similar to spiritual power and demonic power. Being touched by Heshi, the cold eating flower shook its huge flower disc. Its branches and leaves swayed slightly, seeming very happy. Heshi walked to the side of the 9th secluded spirit spring. The area of the spirit spring had grown a lot bigger. Now it was almost half the size of a small pond. There was still a faint layer of mist floating on the spirit spring. She could smell the strong spirit when she was close to the spirit spring. The little purple seed was lying quietly at the bottom of the spring, soundless as if she was dead. With a pain in her heart, Heshi reached out to take out the little purple seed and said in a low voice, "Little Purple, thank you for protecting me." The small purple seed was still quiet. The seed looked dull, and the originally abundant demonic power couldn't be felt at all. Just looking at this small seed, one could imagine how much damage Little Purple suffered and how expensive the price was. Heshi took a deep breath. She channeled her wood spiritual power slowly into the purple seed. Chapter 1425, Angry little bird, the outer layer of the seed gradually became shiny at a speed visible to the naked eye, and a small white spot appeared on the seed as if a bud was about to emerge. Heshi heaved a sigh of relief. She injected wood's spiritual power into the seed like it was free. Until the seed could no longer absorb it, she put it back into the 9th secluded spirit spring. Wood's spiritual power could give life to all things in the world, and 9th secluded spirit spring was the best nourishing liquid. Although it might take a long time for Little Purple to recover completely, Heshi didn't mind waiting at all. She believed that their Little Purple would come back one day. After checking Little Purple, Heshi was about to visit Summer Hall. The little ones were nowhere to be seen, but Heshi could sense that their auras were all in the Summer Hall. Moreover, Heshi was also looking forward to the rewards after advancement, since the rewards after the first advancement were already abundant. Just as she was walking toward the Summer Hall, she heard Little Egg cry out in panic. The sound of chaotic footsteps came from the Summer Hall, then a small object crashed into Heshi's arms. As soon as Little Egg smelled the familiar aura on Heshi, he cried and climbed into Heshi's arms, yelling, "Mom, help! Help!" Wow! Immediately afterward, Little Dumb Cow and Xiao Li also rushed out. Little Dumb Cow still looked dumb, staring straight at Little Egg. Xiao Li had a hint of a smile on her face, and her face was flushed red. Seeing Xiao Li's expression, Heshi knew it was nothing serious, so she couldn't help laughing and said, "What's the matter, Little Egg?" "Whoa, Mom, there is an ugly monster inside. It bullies me. It wants to occupy my nest. Mom, please drive it away." As Little Egg spoke, he stretched out his pink paws and had an aggrieved expression. There were really several red marks on the little paw, which seemed to be pecked by some kind of bird's beak. But, is there a bird in my void? Just as she was thinking, Xiaoqi ran out of Summer Hall excitedly when he heard Heshi's voice. Seeing the intact Heshi, he happily went up to rub against her. Heshi smiled and stroked Xiaoqi's soft hair before turning her eyes away. On Xiaoqi's shoulder, there was actually a fiery red bird. Originally, it was glaring at Little Egg while making a chirping sound, but when it saw Heshi looking over, the little bird immediately tilted its head and stared back mercilessly. Heshi's mouth twitched. Why do I feel that this bird's eyes are saying, "You stupid annoying people, why don't you kneel down when you see me?" Little Egg pointed at the little bird angrily and said, "Mother, it's it. It's this bad bird that pecked me. Let's roast it now, okay?" Chirp, chirp, chirp. The little red bird jumped into the sky and pecked at Little Egg's head. "Wow. Mom, save me." Little Egg threw himself into Heshi's arms. The little red bird dived straight down with an aura as fierce as fire. Heshi frowned slightly, and an ice shield emerged out of nowhere in the sky. Dong! The bird's beak pecked at the ice shield, piercing a big hole on the ice shield, but the little red bird couldn't move forward. Blazing flames radiated from the little red bird, trying to burn the ice shield. But, after a piece of the ice shield was burned, a new ice shield would soon condense. Chapter 1426, Xian Shao Palace Unlock. Little Egg saw the aggrieved look of the little red bird, and he immediately applauded and laughed happily. "Yeah, bad bird, that's what you get for pecking me. Mom is the most powerful, and I'm the most beloved baby of Mom. If you dare to bully me again, I will let Mom strip off all your feathers. Chirp, 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 dead pig, I will peel off your skin. Hee hee, come if you can, come." Heshi pressed her forehead with a headache, and she asked Xiao Li, "What's the matter with this little bird?" Xiao Li quickly said, "Miss, isn't there an egg in the Summer Hall?" Just now the void suddenly changed, and another door opened too, then this little red bird broke out from that egg. "Then, do you know what species this bird is?" Xiao Li shook her head in bewilderment. Xiao Li has never seen such a bird in Miluo continent. "Then we can only wait for little golden dragon to come back." Speaking of which, Heshi was now more worried about the situation outside, especially what happened to Jade Fire Toad. However, she tried to leave the void several times, but she couldn't wait. Is this the void's upgrade that hasn't been done yet? Or is she just not letting her out because she doesn't understand all the changes? Hashi walked quickly into Summer Hall. She was even more dumbfounded when entering. Summer Hall had opened up two palaces, Ling Shao Hall and Xian Shao Hall. However, the palace at this time had changed completely from its previous appearance. The Ling Shao Palace used to be a huge room. Rather than looking like a palace, it was more like a storage room. But now, the Ling Shao Palace had numerous rooms. Each room contained different types of things. The spiritual plants were put together, beastkin meat and bones were put together, magic weapons were put together, and crystal stones were piled together. It was very pleasing to walk in the rooms. Hashi had the illusion of being super rich. The Xianshao Palace was separated into two sections. One section was a resting place. When Hashi walked into the resting place, she felt indescribably refreshed all over his body. Before she went to bed and meditated, she felt her fatigue all over her body swept away. In addition to the resting place, Xianshao Palace also had a place for training, a place for pill refining, and even a puppet array. In it, Hashi could improve her spells and swordsmanship by training with puppets. The puppets were made of wood and looked extremely simple, but their strength was terrifying. With Hashi's current strength comparable to nascent soul stage, she couldn't last for 3 minutes under these puppets. In addition to these changes, a part of the general outline given by the old man Sumeru had finally been unlocked. It was just that Hashi was concerned about the outside world now, so she just flipped through it casually. When she saw that wood source was mentioned in the general outline, she didn't read it anymore. Another void upgrade reward was what made Hashi the happiest. That was a new technique, called Circle of Life. It was a mental method specially used for training the wood's spiritual root. Endless life means that there is no end, no death, and the highest level of practice can control the life and death of all things in nature. Hashi had been in Miluo continent for so long, and this was her first time seeing a technique about wood's spiritual root. Now that she had just awakened the power of wood source, it was really like timely help for her. Chapter 1427, Raging Fire. After putting away Circle of Life, Hashi tried to leave the void again, but she still couldn't do it. Thinking of Nangong Yu, who was still in the magical beast forest and Jade Fire Toad was being consumed, Hashi became anxious. In the collapsed Toad Jade Palace, a raging flame was burning right now. All human martial artists, including beastkins, were trapped in it. In the flames, human screams could be heard from time to time. With just a touch, such flames could burn all the flesh and bones of a person to ashes. Golden Wolf and the others were caught off guard, and 70% of the martial artists they brought with them turned into wandering spirits with no residue left. In the center of the fire, a red toad was spitting flames in all directions. Wherever the flames went, even the stones burned. Hot magma gushed out from the cracks on the surface. In the entire Toad Jade Palace, the only ones who were still alive were the beastkins under the defensive barrier, and a few soul-splitting stage martial artists that Golden Wolf protected with unique magic weapon. However, that was only temporary. Golden Wolf's face was reddened by the flames, and the turtle shell that was tanking in front was making a terrifying crackling sound. Standing behind Golden Wolf, Elderson, Elder Fei and the others looked panicked and kept shouting, "Help!" A trace of fear also flashed in Golden Wolf's eyes. He did not expect that a mere Miluo continent could have such a powerful treasure. That toad breathing flames is clearly the top treasure of Immortal Realm, Jade Fire Toad. If he had seen this Jade Fire Toad on other occasions in the past, Golden Wolf would try to snatch it no matter how. But now, his life was at risk. How could he think about this right now? Things were not going too well on the side of the Beastkin King either. The defensive barrier was burning red and fluctuating. The Beastkin King was holding the barrier while controlling Jade Fire Toad, so he was almost exhausted. The originally gorgeous young face gradually became old. Blood even flowed from the 7 orifices. But after the blood flowed out, it didn't solidify. Instead, it became hotter than magma, burning his skin bit by bit. Faint blue scales appeared on Beastkin King's face and hands, but they were quickly burnt to bloody flesh. The beastkins in the barrier were already crying so hard. They wanted to rush over to extinguish the flames on the Beastkin King, but they were stopped. Beastkin King's voice was hoarse and nearly shattered, but he was extremely decisive. No one is allowed to come over. This fire is not something you can bear. Wait until Jade Fire Toad burns them to death. We'll leave immediately and go to the side of Heavenly Mulberry Sacred Tree. King, we won't leave. The little Beastkin cried loudly, "You're our king. We should protect you. How can we leave you and run away?" King, please don't care about our life and death. Just go on your own. You! Beastkin King suddenly raised his voice and hissed, "If you still regard me as king, just listen to me. After I advanced to Demi-Divine Beast, I could have left this plane, but I stay for you. You don't make me regret this decision." King, the Beastkins couldn't bear it anymore. They wept bitterly and fell to their knees on the ground. Beastkin King closed his eyes and gritted his teeth, channeling all his fundamental life essence into the Jade Fire Toad. Crack, crack. There were louder cracking sounds from the turtle's shell in front of Golden Wolf. Chapter 1428. Dumbfounded. Finally, the turtle's shell burst open. The flames swept everyone instantly. A dreadful scream sounded. Except for Elder Faye and the others who had an ice attribute robe that could withstand several seconds, the others were almost instantly melted into ashes by the flames. A fierce light flashed in Golden Wolf's eyes. He suddenly soared into the air, rushing straight toward the Jade Fire Toad in midair. Rather than waiting in place to be burned to ashes by the flames, he might as well slash the toad to pieces with all his might. Die! However, before Golden Wolf's blade slashed at Jade Fire Toad, a powerful and terrifying force rushed toward him. Golden Wolf was caught off guard. He was turned upside down in midair and slammed into a broken wall. The flames from above enveloped his face, burned his hair clean, and burned most of the mask and skin on his face. Golden Wolf let out a cry of pain, and he quickly wrapped himself in ice crystals, barely preventing himself from being burned to ashes. He looked up viciously to see who dared to attack him. When he saw the scene before him, he widened his eyes in shock. In the fiery red flames, a slender figure of a man appeared at some point in time. He walked in the Toad Jade Palace, which was as hot as the hell, like he was strolling in his own palace garden. Against the backdrop of the flame light, his handsome face looked extraordinarily majestic and charming. He was like a scourge from hell walking slowly with a cruel smile, or like a condescending god, despising the insignificance of mortals in the flame light. The man was still holding a comatose young boy with both hands. The young boy's entire face was buried in the man's arms. From the way the man carefully guarded him like a treasure, their close relationship could be guessed. Who are you?" Golden Wolf suddenly raised his voice and shouted, "Are you a human or a beastkin?" But the man didn't seem to hear his words at all. He just walked in front of the Jade Fire Toad that was still burning with blazing flames. His slender hand reached out, casually grabbed the flame-breathing toad, and then squeezed it lightly. Poof! Beastkin King in the enchantment spat out a mouthful of blood. The Jade Fire Toad that was originally under his control seemed to be frozen by something. There was an inexplicable bone-piercing chill transmitted from the link between the Jade Fire Toad and his divine sense. Beastkin King looked at the man who suddenly appeared in shock, and he asked the same question as Golden Wolf. Who the hell are you?" Nangong Yu held the Jade Fire Toad in his hand. As he channeled the dark spiritual power, he really felt a blazing warm current enter his meridians from the ruby-like toad. Now the day for the cold poison to trigger was getting closer and closer. His dantian and fundamental essence were slowly feeling the freezing cold of his soul and body. When this warm current entered his body, he really felt much more comfortable. But it was just comfortable. As the warm current disappeared, the cold poison still existed. This was no different from the flame cave. Nangong Yu frowned. It seems that if I want to use this Jade Fire Toad to relieve the cold poison, I can only rely on Sheer. Anyway, this is what Sheer wants. I will just keep it first. When the jade fire toad disappeared, the flames burning everywhere in the Toad Jade Palace and the tumbling magma also disappeared without a trace in an instant. Golden Wolf was dumbfounded watching this scene. Chapter 1429. Someone stronger than you. What level of treasure was Jade Fire Toad? Of course I have a way to collect Jade Fire Toad, but that is when Jade Fire Toad is not breathing flames. But this person not only extinguished the toad's flame with bare hands, but he also grabbed it and put it into the storage ring. How is this possible? Golden Wolf suddenly jumped up from the ground, fixed his eyes on Nangongyu, and suddenly said coldly, "Boy, I don't know who you are. If you are sensible, just obediently hand over the Jade Fire Toad you just took away. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude." Nangongyu raised his eyebrows, and his eyes full of irony swept over Golden Wolf's bald forehead and bloody scalp before he said slowly, "Oh? How do you want to be rude to me?" Golden Wolf made a facial gesture to Elder Fei and the others. Elder Fei and Elder Tsin immediately took out their weapons, released their powerful spiritual pressure on their bodies and attacked Nangongyu fiercely. The blue long sword made crackling sparks as it slowly appeared in Nangongyu's palm. This was a fake sealed dragon sword, but it had half the strength of the sealed dragon sword. When Elder Tsin's attack arrived, the sealed dragon sword unsheathed and slashed horizontally. Elder Tsin only saw a blur. He instinctively resisted with his weapon. Clang, it was the sound of weapons clashing. But the next moment, he felt the tearing pain coming rush to his chest and abdomen with a sharp tearing pain. Elder Tsin lowered his head slowly and saw a turquoise long sword penetrating directly through his dantian. Nangongyu withdrew the sealed dragon sword and looked at Elder Fei with a cold smile. Elder Fei's eyes flashed with fear. He screamed suddenly, "It was you. It was you that night." Before he finished speaking, the sealed dragon sword whistled and flew toward Elder Fei. In midair, the long sword turned into an azure dragon, emitted a rumbling dragon roar and pierced through Elder Fei's body. Elder Fei still maintained his frightened expression with a wide open mouth. He wanted to finish the last sentence, but he never had the chance again. The sealed dragon sword killed Elder Fei, but it continued to fly toward Golden Wolf. Golden Wolf's eyes were gloomy and wary, but not fearful. He had already taken out a golden-red flashing whip. When the sealed dragon sword flew over, the whip swept toward the azure dragon. After a burst of crackling, the dragon returned to the body, then it broke in half. Nangongyu's complexion suddenly turned grim. His hands holding Hushi slightly tightened, and his gaze looked terrifying. Although this sealed dragon sword was fake, it was the first gift Hushi gave him. He cherished it very much and never left it. Now it was cut off by this guy. This man is courting death. Golden Wolf looked at Nangongyu with a sneer and said quietly, "Just a martial artist from the lower realm, how dare you show off in front of me? Today I will let you know what it means that there is always someone stronger than you." Nangongyu took a deep breath and slowly put down the sleeping Hushi. He looked at little golden dragon with a fierce gaze as he said, "Look after Sheer. If anything breaks the inscribed jade slip, I will be back in no time." Little golden dragon patted his chest and said, "Don't worry, I will definitely protect the boss. Teach that shameless bastard a painful lesson. I have long been displeased with these guys. Better beat that bastard until his mother doesn't even recognize him." Chapter 1430. Who wins? Little golden dragon, who was also a beastkin, was infuriated by what they did to these beastkins. He couldn't wait to rush over and tear these scum into pieces. Nangongyu ignored little golden dragon's words, but he lowered his head and kissed Hushi's soft cheek before getting up and looking at Golden Wolf. Golden Wolf glanced at the fainted Hushi. Seeing that she was dressed as a young man, he couldn't help but sneered, "Why, is it because we interrupted your intimate moment with your boyfriend? That's why you're so angry? Ha! The garbage in the lower realm is low life. There are so many women to love, yet you still want to be with men." Before Golden Wolf could finish speaking, Nangongyu raised his hand suddenly. With a rumbling sound, the already crumbling toad jade palace collapsed, blocking the sight of the beastkins. Golden Wolf frowned. He was about to ask him what the hell he was doing, then his eyes widened suddenly. Suddenly, a thick black aura spread out from Nangong Yu's body like ink poured into the air. The fearful and creepy aura of death made Golden Wolf feel panic and fear for the first time from the human in the lower realm. Then, Golden Wolf woke up abruptly. Staring at the turbulent jet black, he said in shock, This is the spiritual power of the dark element. How can it be? In this world, including the God domain, there are very few people with the spiritual power of the dark element. The only one I know who can use the dark spiritual power is the lofty existence in the God domain, the one I can't even imagine seeing him. However, now in a mere Miluo continent, I unexpectedly meet someone with such a strong dark spiritual power. Is this still a low-level realm? First, someone advanced to the gold core stage perfect stage, and now even the dark spiritual power. What is happening to this realm? A strong sense of foreboding rose in Golden Wolf's heart. He could see that the strength of the young man in front of him was only at the intermediate stage of the soul-splitting stage, slightly worse than his own. However, the dark spiritual power was the nemesis of all other spiritual powers. In a real battle, it was impossible to predict who would win. Golden Wolf glanced around, and the mutilated corpses of Elder Tsin and Elder Fei came into view. Today, he had lost enough. He still didn't know how to explain to the Lord when he went back. He must not lose even himself here. Thinking of this, a dark light flashed in Golden Wolf's eyes. The golden red whip suddenly swung toward Nangong Yu viciously. Nangong Yu had already held a black and slender sword. He blocked the Golden Wolf's attack with a flick of his hand. However, when the crackling sound disappeared and the dust settled, Nangong Yu saw that Golden Wolf had long since disappeared. He squinted and said with a sneer, "Want to escape? Just try as if you can escape." After speaking, his figure flickered and disappeared in the same place. Heshi, who was still trapped in the void, was very depressed. She tried various methods, but she still couldn't leave the void. She didn't know what the problem was. The few little ones were also worrying. The ancient rhyme spiritual field has become larger, and the spirit spring water has increased, but this also means that the workload of the little ones has increased. The planting and harvesting of the spiritual field were previously in charge by Little Egg and the few little ones. Little Egg was very powerful. He could swipe his paws and harvest the low-level spiritual plants. As for the high-level spiritual plants, he had to be careful so as not to damage the medicinal properties of the spiritual plants. Chapter 1431. Hopeless bird life. However, the little ones also needed cultivation after all. They couldn't all their energy to planting and harvesting spiritual plants. Now that the ancient rhyme spiritual field had gotten so big, should they just leave most of its land wasted? "Mother, hurry up. Come here and have a look." Little Egg's doubtful voice suddenly sounded, "What is this?" Heshi walked over immediately after hearing the words. She saw a strange array in a corner of the ancient rhyme spiritual field. Heshi knew almost nothing about the array, but she could barely recognize that it was an array somewhat similar to the spirit gathering array, but with many more complicated functions. "Little Egg, do you know what array this is?" Little Egg shook his head. He touched the array with his little paws. Heshi took out a few crystal stones and placed on the array, but there was no reaction at all. "Is this array already broken?" Heshi frowned. "There is no place to put the crystal stone. What is it powered by? Moreover, before the void is upgraded today, I had never seen this array in the ancient rhyme spiritual field before." Chirp, chirp, chirp. On the shoulder of Xiao Qi beside her, the little red bird uttered a few crisp chirps. As soon as Heshi looked up, she saw the little red bird looking at them with contempt. Its expression was filled with indescribably mocking and superior. Little Egg immediately said angrily, "Stinky bird, what are you chirping? Do you know what this array is for?" "Chirp, chirp, chirp, of course I know, but I won't tell you." "Dead pig." "Mother, this bird is too bad. Little Egg complained angrily. It clearly knows what this array is for, but it just won't tell. Let's roast it. Chirp, chirp, chirp. It's right to roast you, you fat pig. Make you into a roast pig. Woo, Little Egg doesn't want to be a roast pig. Mother, it bullies Little Egg. Hushy squinted and looked at the red bird coldly. The very cheerful little bird that was jumping around trembled involuntarily when it met Hushy's somewhat indifferent gaze. Hushy reached out and touched the spiritual plants beside, and she said quietly, "You don't seem to know who is the owner of this void? Tell me, what is this array for? Why can't I leave the void now?" "If you don't want to say," Hushy paused, then she said to Xiao-Qi softly, "Xiao-Qi, catch it. Sister will cook you a little red bird." Xiao-Qi's IQ was now much higher. Although he was not very good at speaking, he could tell what Hushy meant right away. Hearing this, without even a moment's hesitation, he grabbed the little red bird on his shoulder. Chirp! The little red bird screamed, desperately trying to break free. Xiao-Qi didn't seem to feel anything. He smiled and handed the little red bird to Hushy. "Sister, chirp, 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 bastard, I was so wrong to like you so much. You actually want to eat me. Bastard, bastard. You're all bastards." Hushy took the chirping bird, grabbed its claws, lifted it upside down and brought it upside down before her. Then she asked slowly, "Now can you tell me, what is this array used for?" Chirp, 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 woo-woo, bad guys, all of you bully me. Even this pretty human brother bullies me. My bird life is hopeless. I don't want to live. Hushy couldn't understand the words of Little Red Bird, but Little Egg could. The little one who couldn't wait to stir up troubles excitedly said, "Mother, it said it doesn't want to live anymore. Let's roast it quickly." Chapter 1432, Purified Spiritual Power. Chirp, 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 chirp. I'm not, bastard. This is the Oigod level planting array, which can only be activated with purified wood element and water element spiritual power. Of course, ordinary crystal stones are useless. God level planting array? What is that? Little Egg repeated Little Red Bird's words. Hushy frowned and said, "What is purified spiritual power?" She tried to use the spiritual power of the 5 elements just now, but it didn't work at all. Chirp, chirp, stupid, of course it is the spiritual power released after learning Circle of Life. It's such a big treasure in Xianshao Palace, haven't you taken a good look at its functions? Hushy was startled. She frowned, "So I can't leave the void now, is it also because I haven't practiced Circle of Life?" Chirp, 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 of course. The Sumeru Void has been upgraded, and you are the owner of the void. If you do not have the ability to control the upgraded void, you will not be able to enter again after you go out. Chirp. Bastard, can you let me go now? Hushy let go of Little Red Bird's hand, and Little Red Bird flapped its wings and flew back to Xiao-Qi's shoulder. Xiao-Qi looked back at it a little sluggishly. His eyes were clear and bright. Chirp. Don't think you look at me like that. I will forgive you for your betrayal just now. You wanted to eat me just now. This is unforgivable. Xiao-Qi suddenly stretched out his finger and poked the bird's head. Chirp, chirp. Well, for the sake of your initiative, I forgive you. If anyone bullies you in the future, I will protect you. Little Egg put his hands on his hips, pointed at Little Red Bird and said, "Stupid bird, you can stay in this void, but you have to listen to me from now on. Besides, mother, I'm the boss." Chirp, chirp, chirp. "Bah, you fat pig, no one will listen to you. Let's fight now. Whoever has the strongest spells will be the boss." The little ones were making a fuss, but Hushy ignored them. She took out the Circle of Life and sat cross-legged on the ground. Although the techniques of Circle of Life were wood element techniques, they could also convert the spiritual power of other elements into wood spiritual power. So after channeling spiritual power for one cycle, Hushy only felt that her 5 elements spiritual power had been stabilized and strengthened. She slowly opened her eyes, and half an hour had passed. The practice of the Circle of Life would take longer and longer every cycle. The first cycle only took half an hour, the second cycle at least 1 day, the third cycle took a month, and the 9th cycle couldn't even be calculated with time. The purified wood spiritual power was slowly poured into the God-level planting array. Hashi wanted to see what kind of array didn't need to be activated by spirit stones. In the next moment, the entire void underwent obvious changes. The mature spiritual plants in the ancient rhyme spiritual field disappeared without a trace suddenly. Hashi probed with divine sense and knew that they were all harvested in the Ling Shao Palace's storage room. The seeds that were originally in the storage room were extracted by themselves and thrown into the ancient rhyme spiritual field one by one. There was no sun above the void, but suddenly a scorching sun appeared out of nowhere. The sun shone on the spiritual field, and the planted seeds germinated at a speed visible to the naked eye. The next moment, white rain clouds floated from the sky, covered the sun, and the spiritual rain poured down, watering the spiritual field. Those spiritual grasses that originally grew out of seedlings continued to grow at a speed visible to the naked eye and bloomed beautiful flowers. They are tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.